Hey guys, how you doing? Jeff here, and today, well, I'm gonna give you my 2 cents on Denis Villeneuve's Dune 2021. There will be some spoilers. The book's been out for years, shit, longer than I've been alive. So if you don't know the story by now, well, you're gonna get it ruined for you. Now, I'm of the opinion, before we start getting into spoilers, 9 out of 10. Visually, this thing was spectacular. Oh my God, was it good? Most of the cast, except for Jason Momoa, because I'm sorry, he is no Duncan Idaho. He's Jason Momoa playing Jason Momoa in Dune. But physically, he was good for the role. Mentality-wise, he just was not Duncan. But other than that, everybody was about spot on. And, well, of course, there's Dr. Kynes. They gave Dr. Kynes a little bit more of an involved role that ate up some time. And, of course, they swapped Kynes to a woman, which, by the way, I must say, them editing out, Kynes from being prominent on the poster for China, fucking hysterical. But I'm not going to devote too much time to that. But the casting for Paul, Leto, Jessica, the Reverend Mother, Baron Harkonnen, Raban, all of them, beautiful. And look, I know some people said, oh, Batista's not a good actor. Guess what? He really doesn't need much acting chops to play Raban. He needs to be a big dumb brute who's, a psychopath. Dave Batista can do that in his sleep. Shit, just about anybody could. Just be bloodthirsty and a maniac. And be big and brooding. No problem. So, the casting, the direction was overall good. And everybody says, oh, Timothy Chalamet, he's so skinny, he's not, imposing and all that. You guys don't understand. From the book, Timothy Chalamet is basically pitch perfect. That's Paul Atreides. I'm sorry, for everybody pointing back to the 84 David Lynch movie, Kyle MacLachlan was miscast as Paul Atreides. That's not Paul. Paul was a skinny 16-year-old waif when he went to Arrakis. He was rail whippet thin, bratty and whiny. So Timothy Chalamet, he nailed it. Absolutely nailed it. Now, with all that out of the way, oh, sorry. And of course, Josh Brolin, the guy that played Thufir. I mean, the cast was brilliant, except for Jason Momoa. Casting was brilliant. Now, especially the critical drinker said, oh, this movie is such a slow boil. Yeah, no, it really isn't. And of course, Tim Pool says he fell asleep because it was so boring. Well, they got hard. They basically, as far as I'm concerned, even though it was 2.5 hours, flew through the opening part, especially with the fall of House Atreides. They flew through it. If you've ever watched a 2000 sci-fi series and read the books, they blew through the opening part of when the Atreides get to Arrakis to the time that the fighting happens. They completely cut out the following. There was a big intrigue of there being a spy in House Atreides and Paul having to figure out who it was. I mean, there was everybody pointing the finger at anybody. Gurney thought it was Jessica. Jessica, didn't know who it was and was more trying to protect her Duke and her son. Gurney was like I said, was hell bent that it was Jessica. Paul, because of so many people he loved and trusted, like, Dr. Yui, Gurney and all them, didn't know who to think at the whole time that Duke Leto was trying to harness the Fremen and make an alliance, but he knew he was on a ticking time bomb. That part with, Oscar Isaacs, worrying completely about his son and forgoing his own safety was great. But they also completely rushed the fact that they made it seem like House Atreides was barely on Arrakis for like a couple of days, maybe a week before, boom. No, House Atreides was on Arrakis for months before the balloon went up. Hell, in the 2000 miniseries, and yes, I'm going back to that because that's probably one of the best, follows the books the closest, where even Baron Harkonnen says, I want them to feel safe. I want them to, but I also want them pointing the fingers. I want them to be in there for a while and let them, let the juices sit. I want them to come to a slow boil before I finally pounce upon them. Whereas it felt like bang, 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 House Atreides falls. I was like, whoa, they cut out so much. I mean, you never really see any much about the Emperor conspiring with, the Guild Navigators and Baron Harkonnen. You never see a thing about Aurelion. You don't even hear a peep about Fade in this movie. And I'm just like, wow, they really cut out a lot. And there was a sequence where Paul is talking to Dr. Kynes, who they made way more important about speaking to the Landsrad, when Dr. Kynes really had nothing to do with it. Kynes didn't. Yeah, they overblew Dr. Kynes' importance to the Emperor and, what Kynes couldn't do. Dr. Kynes didn't really give a shit. As long as Kynes' plan was being followed for the ecological change of Arrakis into a paradise, outside of that, Kynes didn't give a shit. Except for Paul and his mother, who he saw as Ibn al-Sa'ib, the voice of the outer world. Other than that, he didn't give a shit about House Atreides or House Harkonnen. Nor the Emperor, for that matter. So, yeah, they really overblown Dr. Kynes. That was one thing where I'm like, Kynes wouldn't give a damn, nor would he say or she say a word. And the whole thing of Paul's like, well, I know the Emperor has no sons and has only daughters, and, offers that play. And it was like, in the book and in the sci-fi miniseries, once again, I'm referring a lot to that. That was actually stated, where the Emperor was kind of sad that Paul would have to die because he would make a good match for one of his daughters and bring the Duke underneath, but he also realized the Duke was way too popular and was a threat to his rule. So that's why he had him eliminated. So yeah, a lot of the political intrigue, and especially the pointing the finger at everybody in House Atreides, that either got skirted past, glossed over, or wasn't even brought up. And it made Dr. Yui's betrayal literally come out of nowhere, instead of being this thing that finally came to fruition because it was, talked about so much. I mean, when they find the spy who tries to kill Paul with the Hunter Seeker, it's like, all Leda says, just go find me some damn spies, and that's all it's talked about. And like, there was nothing further about how that spy got in, this, that, and the other. And it's just like, wow, you guys glossed over so much. But one thing that I was glad about was they make a lot more about Paul's training instead of just mentioning it here or there, like, Jessica making Paul use the voice to make her give him some water. That was really good. So, overall, again, for me, the pace was brisk, if not outright frantic, to get Paul to the desert. Everybody says, oh, it's such a slow burn. For me, no, it wasn't. They missed a lot as far as I'm concerned. If you want better pacing, I highly recommend you all go find the 2000 miniseries. In fact, I have said this multiple times, and I'll say it here in this video as I wrap this up, because I've been going for almost 10 minutes. If we had the pacing of the 2000 miniseries and the cast and the effects and the budget of the movie, you would have the best Dune movies you had ever seen, especially if you split them up into, 3 2-hour segments and had filmed it all in one shot. You'd probably have one of the best trilogies ever seen. And everybody's saying, oh, and one last point, everybody says, oh, it stopped in such a horrible place. There was really nowhere else to stop that movie besides there. And in fact, I'm surprised they even did the fight with Jameis before ending the movie. Because, once again, going back to the miniseries, the fight with Jameis and them, traipsing through the deserts trying to find the Fremen, that didn't happen until the second part in the movie, in the miniseries. In the miniseries, the first part ended with Paul and Jessica being chased into the storm and into the desert. And then the second part of the miniseries picks up afterwards with them, having crashed out in the desert and putting on the still suits and getting ready to hump through the desert. So, yeah. Like I said, I prefer the pacing of the miniseries, but the budget and the spectacle of the movie and the costumes and all that is far and away superior. But overall, like I said, 9 out of 10. I suggest you see this movie, and if you want to see the better part, you have to support this movie, because if you thought that this was a slow boil and, as someone said, this was basically a prologue for the best part of the book. This was just, the beginning part and setting up of how Paul got to the desert. But anyways, that's my review. You all tell me what you thought of Dune. Did you like it? Did you hate it? What have you? Anyways, I'm Jeff. I'll catch you next time.